Okay, so the live has begun. So Judge Vanessa, it's on you.
All right, good afternoon, guys. Can y'all hear me?
Yes, we can hear.
Okay. Sorry, technical difficulties. The timekeeper, are you guys starting this? I mean, this is the first time I've judged, so what's the protocol here? You guys just get started?
No, ma'am, we don't start timing until they call the first, for the first opening statement.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and begin. Was I supposed to read anything to them?
No, ma'am, but if it's okay, the prosecution would like to begin with some pretrial motions.
All right, let's have it.
We first ask that time be stopped for all objections. Introduce yourselves.
Okay.
We would also like to ask that time be stopped for technical difficulties.
Are these all stipulated to? You guys agreed to this?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, go ahead.
We would like to ask that all witnesses have been sworn.
All right.
And we would like to stipulate that all parties and scoring judges have unmarked copies of the evidence.
Okay.
And we would like to request in advance a 5-minute recess after both parties have presented their cases in order to confer about closing arguments.
That works.
And we would also like to request that any remaining time in our closing be reserved for a rebuttal.
Okay.
And finally, we would like the opportunity to introduce ourselves by name and role.
Yes, please. That would be helpful.
Good morning. Good morning. My name is Brinley Pethe. I will be doing the opening statement. I will be directing Francis Edwards and doing the cross on Harper Hill.
Okay. Who's next?
Good morning. My name is Isabel Pringle, and I will be directing Kennedy Gale and crossing Officer Cameron Cole. Nope, the opposite. I'm sorry. I will be directing Officer Cameron Cole and crossing Kennedy Gale.
Okay.
Good afternoon. My name is Lily Coates. I will be directing Brooke Jackson, crossing Brett Jackson, and delivering the closing arguments. Now our witnesses are going to introduce themselves.
Okay.
Good afternoon. My name is Kavya Malik, and today I play Francis Edwards.
All right. Who else we got?
Good morning. My name is Shelby Irwin, and today I am playing Cameron Cole.
Okay.
Good afternoon. My name is Cameron Anderson, and today I am Brooke Jackson.
All right.
That's all, Your Honor.
Okay. Well, counsel, you may proceed.
Your Honor, before we begin, the defense also has a few preliminary matters.
All right, let's hear them.
We asked permission to post our team roster in the chat for the scoring judges.
Okay.
We also asked permission to screen share our exhibits through our timekeeper.
Okay, that's good.
And Your Honor, the defense asked for permission to make our introductions for the record and for the judges.
Okay, go ahead.
My name is Haley Gleason, and I will be direct questioning Brett Jackson and cross-examining Dr. Francis Edwards.
Okay.
My name is Thomas Namzat, and I'll be direct questioning Kennedy Gill and cross-questioning Officer Cameron Cole.
Okay, thank you.
My name is Lucille Yos. I will be directing Harper Hill and crossing Brooke Jackson. The witnesses will now introduce themselves.
All right.
Hello, my name is Cameron Bethley, and I'll be portraying Harper Hill.
My name is Annie Moss, and I will be portraying Kennedy Gill.
My name is Jordan Sutton. I'll be portraying Brett Jackson.
Okay. Anything else?
No, ma'am. The defense is ready to proceed.
Okay. Counsel, you ready for your opening?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
You must take responsibility for your actions. This lesson has been passed down for generations. It doesn't matter if what you did was minuscule or huge, the sentiment remains. On July 1st, 2020, Brett Jackson fatally shot Shan Lee outside of Bob's Burgers. What Brett did was life-changing, and now they're refusing to take responsibility. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. My name is Brinley Pethe, and I, along with my co-counsel Lily Coates and Isabel Pringle, am honored to represent the state of Louisiana in the case against Brett Jackson. Today, Brett is being charged with second-degree murder. As the prosecution, the burden of proof rests on us, and we will prove to you beyond a reasonable doubt that Brett Jackson shot and killed Shan Lee. We must prove that 1, Brett had the specific intent to commit the murder, and 2, that they did commit the murder, and we will. First, you will hear from Brooke Jackson, the ex-spouse of the defendant and the former girlfriend of Shan Lee. You will hear that Brett became distant and paranoid after finding out that they couldn't have kids. Brooke tried to get Brett to go to couples counseling, but it didn't help, and Brett would go through her emails and messages frequently, often getting angry and even threatening her. Brooke will tell you that Brett Jackson told her, "I better not catch you with anyone else, or it will not be good." You will hear that Brooke was driven into depression because of the state of her marriage, and that Shan Lee was the one who she was able to confide in. Brooke didn't set out to have an affair, but Shan had gone through something similar, and the two became close platonic friends before falling in love. On July 1st, Brooke and Shan went to Bob's Burgers, their favorite lunch spot. Unfortunately, what was supposed to be a nice meal turned into a horrific tragedy. You will hear from Brooke that she saw Brett at the restaurant and that it seemed like they were waiting for the couple. You will hear that they immediately reached for a gun. Shan Lee tried to stop them, but was too slow, and was fatally hit by a bullet from Brett Jackson's gun, sacrificing himself to save Brooke. Brett Jackson had made their decision. Then they fled the scene while Shan bled to death in Brooke's arms. Brett Jackson was refusing to take responsibility. Next, you will hear from Dr. Frances Edwards, a psychiatrist with years of experience. She will tell you that during the 45-minute interview she conducted with the defendant, Brett became noticeably angry and frustrated when talking about Brooke and Shan. You will hear that Brett had no remorse for what happened on July 1st, and she will also tell you that Brett is competent to stand trial and fully able to understand the criminality and repercussions of their actions. Brett Jackson was able to adhere to the law, but they did not. Instead, they are now deflecting responsibility. Finally, you will hear from Officer Cameron Cole, who has years of experience in homicide investigation and criminality and was the lead investigator of this case. They will tell you about how Brett Jackson attempted to obtain security footage to spy on Brooke Jackson and left angry and in a hurry when they were unable to. They will also tell you that this case lacks evidence to suggest that Brett acted in self-defense. You will hear that the gun was owned, drawn, and fired by Brett, and that Brett's clothes had gun residue on them. The defense will try to twist the story in ways that simply don't make sense. Brett Jackson, the defendant, will likely try to tell you that they reached for the gun in self-defense and that the gun had only gone off after it fell to the ground, but this claim is contradicted by Brooke Jackson. Additionally, I'd like you to listen for the fact that Brett themselves will not be able to deny that the person that they shot in self-defense wasn't even armed. The defense will also offer Harper Hill, a longtime friend of Brett, who will likely try to tell you that the gun was on the ground before the shot went off, but Harper themselves will likely tell you that they cannot be sure of the gun's location. The defense will likely call Kennedy Gill to the stand. Kennedy may use the bullet's trajectory to try to convince you of the defense's claim that the gun fell before firing, but they themselves will agree to the fact that this would also be possible if Brett held the gun at a low angle. Honorable ladies and gentlemen of the jury, as stated earlier, we the prosecution bear the burden of proof and must prove to you beyond a reasonable doubt that Brett Jackson is guilty of second-degree murder. After today's testimony, we will have met this burden. It will be evident that the defendant shot and killed Shan Lee, and we implore you to find them guilty. When a child breaks a toy, he tells his parents. But when Brett Jackson killed Shan Lee, they ran away. We must all take responsibility for our actions and face the consequences, and this includes the defendant, Brett Jackson. Thank you.
Counsel, are you ready to proceed?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. May it please the court. Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, take a look at this man. This man is not a murderer. For the 5 years of his marriage to Miss Jackson, he has been nothing but loyal and faithful to her. Brett Jackson is only sitting in this courtroom today after being at the wrong place at the wrong time. For months upon months, the Jacksons tried and failed to conceive until they decided to consult a fertility doctor, where Brett Jackson found out he had a genetic condition not allowing him to have biological children. While Mr. Jackson was dealing with the intense guilt, Brooke Jackson immediately turned to another man. Ladies and gentlemen, this case centers on a few seconds, to which only 2 witnesses have the ability to testify to, Brett Jackson and Brooke Jackson. The opposing counsel will attempt to convince you that their claims and assumptions are evidence, and will have Brooke Jackson testify that Mr. Jackson had murderous intent towards Mr. Lee and subsequently shot and killed him. However, we will prove that her reliability as a witness is biased and she cannot be held for evidence. Furthermore, it is her word against the word of Brett Jackson, which is not evidence that can be used to convict an innocent man. Today, I, Lucille Yost, along with my colleagues Haley Gleason and Thomas and Amzab, will show you that the evidence supports a conclusion that the shot that killed Shan Lee was completely accidental. We will call 3 witnesses today to cast doubt on the prosecution's version of the events. Harper Hill, Mr. Jackson's friend and confidant, was present on the day of Mr. Lee's death and will tell you what happened. Brett Jackson was not aware he would encounter Miss Jackson and Mr. Lee. Mr. Lee, who made physical advancements towards Mr. Jackson before, as even stated by Brooke Jackson, attempting to slap the gun out of Mr. Jackson's hand, causing it to fall. Next, Kennedy Gill, a gunsmith, uses the trajectory of the bullet and the inner mechanisms of the gun to prove the firearm could have dropped because of the impact from a dropping of the gun on a hard surface, just as Brett Jackson testified to. Finally, Brett Jackson will tell you the story of what happened from his perspective. Scottish philosopher and historian David Hume once said, "A wise man proportions his belief to the evidence. To make a truly just and fair verdict, you must consider the lack of evidence offered by the prosecution." The prosecution may use the presence of gunpowder residue on Mr. Jackson's clothing to prove that he fired the gun, when it actually only indicates he was present when the gun discharged. The prosecution will also bring psychiatrist Dr. Edwards to the stand. However, they will not present any insight to the intent of Mr. Jackson, nor the events of July 1st. Their third witness, Brooke Jackson, cannot offer any proof of Brett Jackson's intent to kill or harm Shan Lee, nor support her accusations about Mr. Jackson's alleged actions on July 1st. The burden of proof is on the prosecution today to prove to you, beyond a reasonable doubt, that my client, Brett Jackson, killed Shan Lee. They cannot meet that burden. You will hear through the defense's witnesses that the gunshot which killed Shan Lee was not fired by our client, but rather through the accidental dropping of the gun. Throughout this trial, you will not hear evidence from the prosecution to support their claim that Brett Jackson murdered Shan Lee. With this lack of evidence and our witnesses to prove that the gun was accidentally discharged, you must find Brett Jackson not guilty. Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. Counsel, you ready to call your first witness?
Yes, Your Honor. We call Brooke Jackson to the stand. May I proceed?
Please.
Good afternoon. Can you please introduce yourself?
My name is Brooke Jackson, and I am 32 years old.
And where are you from?
I'm originally from Sunnyside, California, but I moved to Grande City, Louisiana. I was basically raised here, and I consider Grande City my home.
And did you go to college?
I went to Grande City Community College, and this is where I met my ex-spouse.
Can you tell me more about your relationship with the defendant, Brett Jackson?
Well, we met in college, and at first I thought they were kind of arrogant, sort of a know-it-all, but we were off and on for a while, but we eventually got married in 2015.
And did you and Brett want to have kids together?
No, I wanted kids my entire life, and after we got married, we tried for a while, and I was told that there might be a medical condition that hindered them from having children.
Did Brett ever mention this condition to you?
No, they never mentioned anything about it beforehand, but once they did tell me, it seemed like they always knew this.
Objection, Your Honor. Speculation. This witness cannot testify to the emotions of another witness.
Permission to respond, Your Honor?
Please.
This is rationally based on my witness's perspective, especially the fact that they were in a relationship together for multiple years. And my witness is also not testifying as an expert. They're just testifying to their own perception.
Your Honor, permission to respond. Your Honor, experts are the only ones that are allowed to speculate. This regular witness has no right to say as a fact what another person present in court's emotions were and what they felt at a certain time because they were married to them.
Your Honor, a brief response.
Go ahead.
According to Rule 701, if a witness is not testifying as an expert, testimony in the formative opinion is limited to one that is rationally based on the witness's perspective, among other things, among other options. But this is personally based on the witness's perspective.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and overrule the objection.
Yes, Your Honor. I'm going to ask the question again. Did Brett ever mention anything about this condition to you?
No, they never talked about it before, but once they did tell me, it seemed to me like they knew this information for a while.
What happened after that discovery?
Our marriage was never the same. I tried to consider adoption with Brett, but they would never listen, and from what I saw, Brett seemed pretty distant and paranoid.
Did you attempt to improve your relationship with each other?
Yes, I convinced Brett to go to couples counseling, and once we finally did go, it didn't even help.
Was there anything that concerned you within your relationship even after the counseling?
Brett seemed to be really paranoid. They always thought I was cheating.
Did Brett ever try and look through your phone or ask about your text messages ever?
Yes, they would go through my messages and email all the time, and when I finally confronted them about this, they seemed to get really angry. They'd threaten me saying things like, I better not catch you with anyone else or it will not be good.
And how did you feel about that?
This broke me. I felt like my marriage was a fraud. My spouse didn't trust me. I couldn't fulfill a lifelong dream of having children, and on top of all that, I started to feel really depressed.
Did you ever tell anyone about this or seek help in any way?
I spoke with my coworker, Sean Lee. We were great friends and really close.
And what was the extent of your relationship with Sean in the beginning?
I confided in them. They went through something similar earlier, so they were the perfect person to talk to about my problems. They understood. They listened. We trusted each other.
And how did you perceive that Brett felt about this relationship?
From what I saw, Brett got really jealous of this friendship immediately and thought it was an affair.
Did you end up having an affair with Sean?
Well, at first, everything was strictly platonic, but with time and really getting to know each other, we began to fall in love.
Moving on to July 1st, 2020, what happened that day?
We were going to our favorite lunch spot at the time, Big Bob's Burgers, and there I saw Brett.
What happened once you saw Brett?
Well, I looked and I saw Brett there. It seemed like they were waiting for us. They immediately reached for a gun. I didn't even know they had a gun until that moment.
If I showed you that gun, would you be able to recognize it?
Yes.
Objection, Your Honor, lack of foundation. There is no reason this witness would be able to identify a weapon. She states herself that once the gun is present, she closes her eyes, and therefore she has no evident ability to testify on what this gun is.
Permission to respond, Your Honor.
Go ahead.
At the end of the affidavits, it is stated what pieces of evidence the witnesses are familiar with and therefore can be entered into evidence under their directs or cross-examinations. And Exhibit E is under Brooke Jackson's affidavit. Also, it is not true that Brooke's eyes were closed the entire time the gun was present. It only in a specific time frame.
Any response?
No, Your Honor.
May I continue?
Please.
Yes, Your Honor. Let the record reflect that this is an unmarked copy of Exhibit E that I'm showing to opposing counsel and yourself. May I proceed with getting my witness to identify with this?
Yes, you can proceed.
Can you tell the court what this is?
This is the gun that Brett aimed at Sean and I unprompted.
And is that an accurate representation of the gun?
Yes.
Your Honor, seeing as the witness is properly identified and described as Exhibit, I now offer, file, and introduce it into evidence as Exhibit E.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, go ahead. It's admitted.
When you saw this weapon, how did you react?
When I saw this gun, I was paralyzed with fear. I thought that Brett was going to kill us.
What happened next?
Well, Shan tried to stop them, and I guess they were too slow. And Brett shot Sean.
What happened after Sean got shot?
Oh, it seemed like Brett ran away. I immediately called 911. I held Sean in my chest, and they eventually passed in my arms.
Did you talk to any responding police officers at the scene?
I spoke to an officer, Cameron Cole. I told Officer Cole that Brett reached for a gun, seeing Sean and I together. Brett shot Sean and ran from the scene.
Do you hope anything comes out of talking to the officer that day?
I just hope that Sean's sacrifice wasn't in vain and that I get justice for Brett killing the love of my life.
Thank you. I now turn this witness for cross-examination.
Permission to begin cross, Your Honor.
Go ahead, proceed.
Hey, hello, Ms. Jackson. When you first met Brett, how would you describe his personality?
When I first met Brett, like I said, they were arrogant, sort of a know-it-all, but we eventually started dating.
Would you say when you first met Brett, you did not really like him that much?
Well, not really, but we eventually started to get along.
So you chose to marry Brett despite being aware of these early toxic signs by him?
I wouldn't necessarily say they were toxic, more as a character flaw, if you will, but I eventually fell in love with them, so I decided to marry the love of my life.
Whenever Brett started showing the problems that you said he had, you chose to go to marriage counseling, correct?
I convinced Brett to go to marriage counseling, yes.
And wasn't it during this course of this marriage counseling that you met Shanley?
No, I worked with Shanley for a while. We were friends before.
Ms. Jackson, when would you say that you met Shanley and began becoming friends?
In 2019.
Is this directly after the marriage counseling or before the marriage counseling?
I'd say before.
Before the marriage counseling, you started being friends with Shanley.
I was friends with them beforehand, yes.
Why was Brett paranoid? Could you refresh?
Objection, Your Honor. This is asking my witness to speculate on thoughts that are no longer her own. She can give her perception, but she cannot be inside of Brett's head.
Your Honor, permission to respond.
Permission granted.
Your Honor, this witness on direct previously stated multiple reasons that Brett could have been paranoid, and I'm simply asking her to restate these reasons that were just allowed to be stated in direct.
Permission to respond, Your Honor.
Go ahead.
I do not believe that this is the course that opposing counsel is taking. I believe that the things that were stated on direct were character traits, including being paranoid, not why Brett was paranoid. Also, in the way that opposing counsel asked the question, it seemed like they were getting my witness to speculate on what was going on inside of Brett's head.
Your Honor, this witness previously stated when Brett started going through her phone, he began to be more paranoid. And if she just testified to that, I see no reason it cannot be brought up again on cross.
Okay, I think for the same reasons I overruled the last objection, I'm going to overrule this one as well.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Jackson, when Brett Jackson was experiencing this paranoia that caused you to go to marriage counseling, what do you think his reasons for being paranoid was?
I'm not really sure. We had mutual friends, and Brett would accuse me of cheating on them with our mutual friends. So when they finally accused me of cheating with Sean, I wasn't fazed by this. It was common by now.
Did you just say on direct that he would go through your phones and text messages and was being paranoid by things he found on your phone?
Just paranoid for me talking to my friends.
When did you begin your affair with Mr. Lee?
I began my affair somewhere around January.
And what is the difference in this affair relationship than the platonic relationship you previously stated you had?
Well, Brett was really driving me away from them. They were always paranoid like we've been discussing, and Sean really provided something else, trust, safety.
That was not the question. I asked what was the difference? What activities did you participate in the affair that's different than just your platonic relationship?
Objection, Your Honor. My witness was given a vague question to respond to, and my witness responded with her whole, in her best way to this vague question.
Your Honor, this witness did not respond to the question. I asked her about the evident shift that she said happened in January between platonic feelings to falling madly in love. And I am asking if she changed her way she hung out with him or what she did with him in this. It's not a vague question. It's a very simple question about what the two did together.
Then, Your Honor, can I change my objection to outside of the scope of the affidavit?
Counsel, do you have a place in the affidavit this is supported?
Your Honor, the witness stated that she started having an affair in January. However, in the affidavit, it never says she has an affair, but she is saying that she had one, so we're going to go with that. And I cannot pull up where she said exactly, but it's implied. And I can move on and ask questions about evidence that has been submitted. If that is what's necessary.
Why don't you go ahead and move on then?
Okay, yes, ma'am. Thank you, Your Honor. Okay. Ms. Jackson, you were in the practice of sending and receiving text and emails with Shanley, correct?
Yes, this is how we would communicate.
Your Honor, permission to screen share what has been previously marked as Exhibit A. Let the record reflect that I am showing opposing counsel during the screen share. Oh, Your Honor, to screen share, the host has to give permission to our timekeeper.
Well, I don't think I'm the host, correct?
If it's
I'm enabling it now. I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you so much.
There you go. It should be able to work now.
Thank you so much. Ms. Jackson, can you please identify this exhibit?
These are some messages between me and Shanley.
Could you please read all 4 messages?
Your Honor, objection. The opposing counsel is asking questions with something that is not yet entered into evidence.
So I will enter it into evidence now, Your Honor.
Do you have an objection to this piece of evidence being offered and introduced?
Yes, Your Honor. Among being hearsay on Sean's side of things, I also object to this being more prejudicial than probative and trying to sway the jury in one way or another in a more prejudicial than probative way to this case.
Your Honor, these text messages clearly represent the relationship between Brooke Jackson and Shanley, which is a very evident part of this case today. Stipulation 7 says that all objections to the authenticity have been waived, so these are messages between Shan and Brooke that have been proven to be what they have said.
Permission to respond, Your Honor?
Please.
I am not questioning the authenticity of these text messages. I am questioning the relevance of this specific piece, that it's more prejudicial than probative. We are very clear that there is an affair between Brooke and Sean. We also know that the case today is determining the murder of Sean Lee by Brett Jackson, not if Brooke and Sean's affair was happening, because we know it was. These text messages are meant to sway the jury in one way or another. That is not necessary to the case.
Your Honor, these text messages are not showing any prejudice. These are examples of times that Brooke Jackson and Shan would be together. And this clearly states that Brett Jackson was not insane or over paranoid in his assumption that they were in fact having an affair. And therefore he is not this paranoid, crazy man that is being accused of him by Brooke Jackson and the opposing counsel.
Permission to respond, Your Honor.
Please.
Your Honor, I still believe that these are more prejudicial than probative due to the fact that it's going to sway the jury in one way or another. That has no bearing on the fact that Brett Jackson killed Sean Lee. Also, this is hearsay.
This is also not hearsay because it has been stipulated that these are what they purport themselves to be according to stipulation 7. Also, it is going straightly against another prejudice that was presented by the opposing counsel and calling Brett paranoid. This proves that his paranoia was justified and that what he thought was going on actually was going on.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and let it in.
Thank you, Your Honor. Brooke Jackson, can you please read the last 2 messages?
No problem. Will be fun to get some work done tonight. I do love doing work.
We also verified that work is placed in quotation marks both times it's used.
Objection, Your Honor. I really don't see the relevance in this.
Your Honor, this is relevant because it proves that they are not in fact just doing work and they are engaging in an affair.
Permission to respond, Your Honor.
Sure.
Now that this is entered into evidence, the jurors have this information and they can read it themselves. There's no need to add certain meanings to certain words that are not meant in those ways.
I was just about to ask what Brooke Jackson meant by putting these words in quotation marks. That's why I was verifying that they were in quotation marks.
Okay, let's go ahead and proceed with those questions and see where we go.
Ms. Jackson, can you verify that the work is in quotation marks?
Yes, the work is in quotations.
What do these quotation marks indicate?
Your Honor, if I may, this is going to become an extrapolation. Yes, Your Honor. This is now becoming based on an outside point of view. This is not contained within the affidavit, and I'm worried as soon as this becomes a statement in court, opposing counsel will begin to believe that there's more prejudicial than probative to begin with. Her statement.
Your Honor, the opposing counsel stated even in their opening statement that the two were having an affair. And by looking at this, it is within the bounds of the affidavit and the witness's testimony that they were doing things outside of work and using work as a colloquial to mean other things. And I'm just verifying what even the opposing counsel has said to be an affair.
Okay, I think that's fair. Go ahead.
Let's move on. Your Honor, permission to screen share what is previously marked as Exhibit B.
Go ahead, proceed.
Ms. Jackson, can you please identify this evidence for the court?
This is an email that Shan sent to me.
Your Honor, at this time, I offer file and enter into evidence Exhibit B. Its authenticity has been stipulated and established.
Any objection?
Permission to respond? Yes, Your Honor. This is, again, hearsay.
Your Honor, this is not hearsay. These are the words exchanged to Brooke Jackson, and it's stipulated in stipulation 7 again that the authenticity of these have been proven and can be used in court.
Permission to respond, Your Honor? Regardless if it's authentic or not, I'm aware that it's authentic. That still doesn't mean that it's not hearsay. Hearsay is any out-of-court statement.
Your Honor, this exhibit is not, in fact, hearsay. It was a conversation between Brooke Jackson and Shanley, and she's allowed to testify on her impression from what has been told to her.
Your Honor, if I may.
Yes.
this is, again, this is still hearsay. The opposing counsel is entering this into evidence purely for the content, and that is the definition of hearsay.
Your Honor, the authenticity has been stipulated. It is exactly what it purports itself to be. It is what was stated between these two. So it's proven that this is, in fact, what was been stated, and it was stated directly to this witness.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go ahead and allow it.
Ms. Jackson, can you please read the subject line of this email?
It is called "Still Can't Believe Brett Doesn't Know."
So in this email, you were hiding you and Shan's relationship from Brett.
I was hiding my relationship with with Shan because I was scared of what Brett might do. They've threatened me in the past. What makes them stop from doing those threats?
So just to clarify, this text message conversation and the affair started in January, and this email was sent May 4th, correct?
That is correct.
Which means about 4 months have passed, correct?
Yes.
And at this time, you were in fact still married to Brett.
I was still married to Brett, but I was still with Sean because I, once again, was scared of what Brett might do. They've threatened me before. I didn't want that to be enacted.
At this line, you say, or another line in this from Shan is, "Are you coming to my apartment tonight?" Therefore, according to this email, as well as the conversation in Exhibit E, you and Mr. Lee were in the habit of meeting in the evenings and getting work done, correct?
We were hanging.
Objection, Your Honor. I'm sorry. I don't see the relevance in this. It has been established that there was an affair going on, that they were meeting up behind Brett's back, but I feel like we're overusing the point.
Your Honor, this is establishing that it went on for months and months, and Brooke Jackson could have very well gotten a divorce back when the affair had started, but it has been a significant amount of time that they have been hiding and explaining that Brett Jackson was paranoid and she was continuing to go behind his back without pursuing a divorce.
Permission to respond, Your Honor?
Please, go ahead.
It has been established by my witness that she was scared of what Brett would do to her if she began to get a divorce, and that has been said about 3 times already. So I feel like that has been a point that's been given already.
Your Honor, this witness never testified to be scared of what happens in a divorce. She was scared of Brett catching her talking to another person, but the opposing counsel has never stated that she was scared of getting a divorce from Brett.
Do you have a response, counsel?
Yes, Your Honor. For the past 3 questions, she said that she was scared of getting a divorce because she's scared what Brett might do to her if she did.
Okay.
For the sake of time, we can move on.
Yes, let's go ahead and it's already admitted, so let's wrap up this line of questioning.
Thank you, Your Honor. So moving to July 1st, when the gun went off, you closed your eyes, correct?
I closed my eyes for barely a split second, so yeah.
You only closed your eyes for a split second, correct?
Yes, my eyes were open from when Shan was going up to the gun and Brett was pointing it at both of us. I had my eyes closed for 1 second, and when I opened them, Brett was on the floor. Sean was on the floor and Brett was running.
You claim to have closed your eyes for a split second, or 1 second you said, but once you opened them, Brett had the ability to completely flee the scene. Is that what you're claiming?
Your Honor, this is asked and answered. It has been established that she closed her eyes for a split second and then Brett fled the scene.
Your Honor, I am just questioning this witness's answers because if she's truthfully saying she only had her eyes closed for a second or a split second, there's no possible way Brett Jackson could have fled the scene and completely vanished so quickly.
Permission to respond, Your Honor?
Yes, please.
Respectfully, those are conclusions that the jury can make or can be brought up in closing because this has already been asked a few times. And it is now established that her eyes were closed for a split second and then Brett ran away. And that's that.
Your Honor, this is another question. I'm asking her if she thinks her judgment of how long her eyes were closed are acceptable because it is very unlikely that this man could have fled the scene in half a second.
Okay, let's just go ahead and wrap up this line of questioning and move on.
You told Officer Cole that you were not completely sure if you closed your eyes, correct? If you closed your eyes before or after the gunshot, correct?
I wasn't completely sure, but now that I've looked it over in my head a bunch, I believe it was as soon as the gun shot, I closed my eyes.
So since you only believe it was after, you cannot certainly say that Brett shot Shan.
I'm so sorry. Could you repeat that question for me?
Yes, ma'am. So since you are not completely sure if you close your eyes before or after, you cannot certainly say that Brett shot Shan, can you?
I know that I saw Brett aiming the gun at us, Shan trying to protect us. I heard the gun shot. I closed my eyes and Brett ran away in guilt.
Thank you, Your Honor, for the questions. Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Okay.
Your Honor,
Your next witness.
I just want to say I'm not going to do a redirect, but the defense is ready to call their next witness.
Okay.
The prosecution calls Dr. Francis Edwards to the stand.
Okay.
Good morning. Can you please introduce yourself to the jury?
I am Dr. Francis Edwards, and I'm a psychiatrist.
And what education did you receive?
I received a dual bachelor's degree in biology and chemistry at Tulane, and then I attended Harvard School of Medicine, where I graduated with honors, and then I completed my residency at the prestigious Johnson School of Psychiatric Medicine.
Can you tell the court a little about your experience in your field?
Sure. I opened up my own private practice in Grand City, Louisiana, and I'm also hired by the state to perform psychiatric evaluations on defendants accused of crimes.
Your Honor, seeing as the witness has properly laid the grounds for expertise, I ask that she be entered as an expert in the field of forensic psychiatry in accordance with Rule 702.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Okay.
Thank you. Moving on, what did you do to prepare for the case?
I reviewed all the texts, emails, evidence, and affidavits, and I also conducted an MPP.
And if I were to show you this an excerpt from a paper that you wrote on MPPs, would you be able to recognize this?
Of course.
Your Honor, please let the record reflect that this Exhibit H is unmarked and has been viewed by both Your Honor and opposing counsel, and I would like to proceed with having my witness identify this.
Any objection?
The witness can identify it, yes.
Okay, proceed.
Dr. Edwards, can you please identify this for the jury?
Yes, this is part of the paper I wrote on the MPP.
Is this an accurate depiction of it?
Yes.
Your Honor, seeing as the witness has properly identified and described the exhibit, I now move to offer, file, and introduce this as Exhibit H.
Objection? Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, proceed.
Thank you. Using the evidence, can you please explain what an MPP is?
Of course, as stated in the excerpt, the MPP is the most common psychological assessment used, and it can be a valuable tool in assessment of those charged with or convicted of murder.
Can you briefly elaborate on what the test entails?
So it's a standard test in my field. It consists of a series of questions. The scenarios require the person being interviewed to demonstrate their ability to recollect facts, analyze different scenarios, and provide their interpretation of these scenarios.
Thank you. Was there anything else that you did to prepare for the case?
Yes, I conducted a 45-minute interview with the defendant.
Can you briefly describe what you learned about the incident during this interview?
I learned that Brett was conducting surveillance on Brooke Jackson and had gone to Bob's Burgers to investigate. However, they weren't able to obtain any surveillance footage from the establishment and were displeased. Then they ran into Brooke and Shan Lee, which is when Brett drew their gun.
And what did you find about the defendant from this interview, as well as from the other resources that you reviewed?
I found the defendant became angry and frustrated when speaking about Brooke and Shan, and for an accidental death, they seemed to feel no remorse.
Dr. Edwards, in your expert opinion, is the defendant competent to stand trial and understand the potential consequences of their actions?
In my expert opinion, yes. After reviewing the case, interview, and MPP, the defendant is able to appreciate the criminality of their actions.
Thank you. I now turn this witness for cross-examination.
So you're ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor. Hello, Dr. Edwards. My name is Haley Gleason, and I have a few questions for you. Sure. Dr. Edwards, you used the method of MPP testing on Mr. Jackson, correct?
That is correct.
Isn't it true that the interview you conducted was only 45 minutes?
That is correct.
Would you say that that is enough time to assess someone's entire personality?
Yes, from this interview, I was able to find that Brett became very angry and frustrated when speaking about Shan Lee.
Though it was only a 45-minute interview. Have you ever felt uncomfortable with the capabilities of this test or its accuracy?
No, I have not.
Your Honor, permission to screen share what has already been marked as Exhibit H.
Permission granted.
Dr. Edwards, do you recognize this document?
Yes.
Since this document has already been entered, I'd like to begin my line of questioning with the exhibit.
Go ahead.
Can you please read the line beginning with "I have never" in the middle of the bottom paragraph?
I have never evaluated an NPP2 in court that was scored correctly. Would you like me to keep going?
Next.
Incorrectly scored NPP2 tests may result in inaccurate findings. Thus, incorrect scoring of the NPP2 is a problem and obvious misapplication of the NPP2 in court.
Do you remember writing this article, Dr. Francis?
Yes.
When you interviewed Mr. Jackson, didn't you believe that he exhibited no remorse?
I did, and it was very shocking for something that seemed to be an accidental death.
Though, isn't it true that there is a possibility of the NPP2 being done so incorrectly?
It's a possibility. However, these NPPs are computer generated, and as it states in the first paragraph of the common mistakes, computer generated results provide hypothesis about the individual based on the profile of scores. Not all hypotheses apply to every individual. In other words, the forensic psychologist must actually use clinical judgment in interpreting the results of the individual's NPP2.
Though, isn't it true that these results could have a misapplication and they cannot be really implemented without any doubt? Yes or no?
Like I answered before, it is a possibility. However, these NPPs are computer generated.
Thank you. No further questions.
Brief redirect, Your Honor.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Dr. Edwards, was the MPP that you conducted scored correctly?
Yes.
Objection, Your Honor.
What's your objection?
Lack of foundation.
Your Honor, may I respond?
Yes, please.
Opposing counsel asked several questions about the MPP, many of them questioning its validity. So it is not outside the scope of the cross if I were to ask a question regarding its validity.
Your Honor, this witness has already testified during the defense's questioning that there could be reasonable doubt within the findings, so she cannot now testify separately and say that she is 100% accurate in her findings if she has already said that there could be doubt.
Your Honor, may I respond?
Yes, please.
My witness is allowed to answer questions on redirect if the questions refer to questions that were asked on the cross-examination, and this question is related to several questions that were asked on cross.
Your Honor, may I respond to?
Okay.
Yes, you may ask separate questions, but she cannot negate anything that she had said within the defense's cross-examination. She has just negated an answer that she gave to me, and she cannot do that.
Permission to respond, Your Honor.
Yes.
My witness did not even get to complete her answer, and the beginning of the answer that she did give did not negate any previous statement that she made.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and let her proceed with the rest of her answer, and counsel, you can always tie up in your closing or in further questioning.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor. Would you like me to re-ask the question?
Yes, please.
Was the MPP that you conducted on Brett Jackson scored correctly?
Based on my evaluation, yes, it was scored correctly. However, there are some common misapplications in the report as they are computer generated. It is solely based on my evaluation to conclude if the MPP was scored correctly.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
Any other questions?
No, Your Honor.
Prosecution calls Officer Cameron Cole. Good afternoon. Can you please state your name and occupation for the court?
Good afternoon. My name is Cameron Cole, and I am a homicide investigator.
And what qualifications do you have as an investigator?
I have my master's degree in criminal justice with a concentration in criminology theory and research methods.
And what experience do you have in the criminal field?
I've investigated over 50 homicides and testified in trial as an expert in homicide investigation and criminology theory over 24 times.
Your Honor, seeing as the witness has probably laid the foundation for expertise, I now ask that they be entered as an expert in the field of homicide investigation and criminology theory.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, go ahead.
Why are you here today, Ms. Cole?
I was the lead investigator of the case on July 1st.
And when you first arrived at the scene, what was the first thing you did?
I first began to take statements from the witnesses to start my investigation.
Who was the first person you took a statement from?
Miss Brooke Jackson.
And what information did you
Objection,
receive?
Your Honor.
from Brooke?
Hearsay.
Permission to respond, Your Honor?
Yes, please.
This would be Ms. Jackson's present sense impression of the event, so therefore is an exception to the hearsay objection.
It's still an impression because it's him saying what she said. You did not specify that that was the statement you took. You just said she said.
Sorry, it's Officer Cameron Cole took the Brooke's present sense impression of the event, and therefore it's not hearsay. That's it. Exception to the hearsay.
Okay, go ahead and proceed.
Yes, Your Honor. Would you like me to repeat the question?
Yes, please.
So, what information did Brooke inform you about the incident?
Miss Jackson indicated to me that as she approached Big Bob's Burgers, Brett withdrew their handgun that was concealed on the side in the holster. And Miss Jackson also informed me that the person who shot Sean was in fact their ex-spouse, Brett Jackson.
And who else did you interview at the scene?
I interviewed Bob, the owner of Big Bob's Burgers.
Honor,
as well
I
as
cannot hear
Harper
the
Hill.
witness clearly. Her volume is low.
One moment, please. We'll try to fix that. We're just gonna have her speak up, and can you just let us know if that's better, please?
Okay, I'll let you.
Thank you. I'll repeat the question. So, who else did you interview at the scene?
I interviewed Harper Hill and Big Bob, the owner of Big Bob's Burgers.
And what information did you receive from Bob?
Bob told me that Brett had gone to the restaurant to look at surveillance footage to spy on their ex-spouse. And after Bob,
He said the witness stated that Bob said what she was not. It's outside the matter.
Permission to respond, Your Honor?
Yes, go ahead.
This is, again, the present sense impression. It is Bob's present sense impression of the instance that happened, and Officer Cameron took that statement at the time of the incident and just took Bob's impression of said incident.
Permission to respond, Your Honor?
Okay.
Present sense of impression is for people who are in court today, and Bob is not a witness in court.
Your Honor, the witnesses don't have to be present in court for it to be present sense impression, nor do they have to be eyewitnesses to the event. Therefore, this is still an allowed exception to the hearsay objection.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and allow it. Continue.
Yes, Your Honor. Would you like me to repeat the question?
yes, please.
So what did Bob inform you about the incident?
Bob informed me that Brett wanted to look at surveillance footage in order to spy on their spouse, and that after Bob refused, Brett left the establishment seemingly angry and in a hurry. And then it was only a few moments later that Bob and his staff heard a single gunshot from right outside of the restaurant.
And what did Ms. Hill inform you about the incident?
Ms. Hill confirmed to me that it was Brett Jackson who owned this gun.
Thank you. Were you able to take a statement from the defendant?
Objection, your hearsay.
Uh,
They're speaking on the truth of the matter.
Counsel?
This is, I'm sorry. If it's a statement from the defendant, is opposing party statement, therefore my witness is allowed to testify on it.
Yeah, but I believe the question was simply, did she take a statement, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, let's go ahead.
The witness is testifying on another person who wasn't here.
My witness hasn't testified to anything that anyone else has said. I simply asked if they were taking a statement. They were going to confirm or deny that fact.
All right, thank you.
I'll ask you again. Were you able to take a statement from the defendant?
Yes, I was.
And what was your initial impression of him?
It seemed to me that the defendant, Brett Jackson, was rather calm for someone who was being accused of second-degree murder.
And what did they have to say about the incident?
Mr. Jackson claimed that he feared for his life and he had no other choice but to draw his gun.
And during your investigation, did you create any illustrations about the shooting?
Yes, I made an illustration of the bullet trajectory.
And if I showed it to you, would you recognize it?
Yes, I would.
Your Honor, please let the record reflect that I'm sorry, I just have to grab it. I am showing a picture of what has been marked as Exhibit F2. I would now like to proceed with having my witness identify it.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, go ahead, proceed.
Thank you. Do you recognize this exhibit?
Yes, this is my illustration of the bullet trajectory.
And has it been marked or altered in any way?
No.
Now, Your Honor, seeing as
Your
my witness
Honor, this witness has not been tendered into being an expert in talking about bullet trajectory.
Permission to respond, Your Honor?
Yes.
Bullet trajectory does fall under the scope of criminology theory as well as homicide investigation, and that is what my witness is.
You did not enter specifically at her as an expert in bullet trajectory.
Permission to respond?
Yes.
She does not have to be entered specifically as a witness as an expert in bullet trajectory, since that falls under her knowledge in criminology theory.
Do you have a response?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Since my witness has properly identified this exhibit, I now ask that it be entered into evidence as Exhibit F2.
Okay.
Now, based on this exhibit that you created, what would you conclude about the shot fired?
I concluded that the trajectory depicted is consistent with the notion of shooting from the waist or below the belt line.
Thank you. And what did you conclude after your investigation?
I concluded that there was no other evidence to support Brett acting in self-defense and no other witnesses that were able to identify or provide any supporting facts that would suggest Brett had any reason to fear for his life. And I also determined that the gun involved in this case was owned, drawn, and fired by Brett Jackson.
Thank you. I now tender this witness for cross-examination.
Hello, Officer Cole. I'll be asking you some questions. You were the officer dispatched to the crime scene, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And you met with Ms. Jackson, correct?
Yes, this is correct.
So would you say that your conclusion on the defendant isn't biased from the promising Ms. Brooke Jackson that Brett would be taken to jail?
Yes, I would agree that this is not biased because I performed in my investigation and interviewed all of the witnesses, which were Brooke Jackson, Harper Hill, Bob, and Brett Jackson.
Correct, but you had not examined Brett Jackson before you had told her that you were going to bring him to justice. You initially just went off her words.
It was during my investigation that I noticed Brett Jackson was rather calm for being accused of second-degree murder, and I was able to determine that the gun was being pointed at Sean Lee by Brett Jackson. That was also
Not answering my question,
fired.
Ms. Cole. I asked, is it true that you did not interview Brett before promising Brooke Jackson that you would bring him to justice?
It was
Correct.
during my investigation
You
that
had not interviewed Brett Jackson before you told her.
I had asked all of the witnesses about what happened at the event, and I interviewed Miss Brooke Jackson first because it was.
Are you aware you
at the scene.
have a
Objection, Your Honor. My witness is allowed to answer with yes or no and then give a brief explanation, and she should not be cut off.
Okay, I'm about to impeach your witness because she's not testifying on what was in her affidavit. So please, can you share Brooke's affidavit? Okay, to where she was speaking to the officer. Get it. Okay. Yes, right there. Can you please read from where it says Officer Cole assured me, please?
I'm sorry, can you repeat where you want me to read from?
From where it says Officer Cole assured me.
Objection, this is not my client's affidavit.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. All right. I'd like to move on, please.
Yes, go ahead.
Are you familiar with Exhibits F?
Yes, I am familiar.
Okay, Your Honor, permission to share the exhibit evidence previously entered as Exhibit F.
Go ahead.
Can you tell me what this exhibit shows?
This is the illustration of the bullet trajectory that I drew.
And can you explain me what the angle of the trajectory suggests about the gun, position the gun was fired?
It suggests that the gun was shot from below the belt line.
And isn't it true that the defendant, Brett Jackson, told you that the gun was struck from his hand and hit the ground, which is when the shot was fired? Yes or no, please?
Yes, this is true. This is what Brett Jackson told me, but I was able to conclude from my investigation.
Therefore,
that
wouldn't
it
this
was
trajectory
more
be consistent with the
Your
defendant?
Honor, my witness is allowed to give a brief explanation.
I asked for a
after
yes or
taking
no
yes
answer.
She is still allowed to give a brief explanation.
Agreed.
Your Honor, permission to
Do you have a response?
Yeah. I asked for a specific yes or no answer, and I did not need an explanation.
Permission to respond, Your Honor?
Yes.
My client is still allowed to give a brief explanation, irregardless of whether she asked for a yes or no. She is required to give a yes or no, and either way, and she is still allowed that brief explanation after answering the question.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with that. Let's move on.
Would you like me to restate the question?
I would.
Yes, please.
Okay. Isn't it true that the defendant, Brett Jackson, told you that the gun was struck from his hand and hit the ground, which is when the shot was fired?
Yes, this is true, as I was saying, but then in my investigation, I determined it was more likely than not that the gun was shot from below the belt line.
Therefore, wouldn't this trajectory be consistent with the defendant's claim of the gunshot being fired from the ground?
This is a possibility, but it is more likely than not that it was shot from below the belt line, as I concluded in my investigation once I was at the scene.
So to reiterate, it's consistent with the defendant's claim that the gunshot was fired from.
Objection, Your Honor, asked and answered.
I asked to clarify. I was not asking the same question. I was asking the witness to clarify for the jury.
Okay.
Commissioner, respond.
Go ahead and respond.
You simply just re-asked the question if it's still asked and answered.
Okay, because of time, I will move on, if that's okay.
Yes, please.
Okay. Officer Cole, you examined the gun found at the scene?
Yes, I did.
Your Honor, permission to show the witness Exhibit E previously entered.
Yes, please. Go ahead.
This is an accurate representation of the gun?
Yes, it is.
So isn't it true that you noticed scratches and a dent at the bottom of the handle consistent to it being dropped?
Yes, I did notice this, and it could be consistent with the gun being dropped after it was fired.
Thank you, Officer Cole. In your experience as a homicide investigator, isn't it true that anyone standing within close proximity to the fired gun can be exposed to gunpowder residue?
Yes, this is correct.
Therefore, doesn't it make perfect sense that gunshot residue was found on Brett Jackson's clothes, even though if it was fired from his feet?
Yes, but I did conclude that the gun had been owned, drawn, and fired by Brett Jackson in my investigation, which is why Brett Jackson was convicted.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Prosecution rests, Your Honor.
Okay, you guys ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
The defense will now call Harper Hill to the stand. Good evening, Ms. Hill. Will you please introduce yourself to the court?
My name is Harper Hill. I'm 34 years old, and I'm from Grande City, Louisiana.
What is your relationship to the defendant, Mr. Jackson?
Me and Brett have been friends since high school and remain friends throughout college and our adult life.
Would you say this made you aware of the events in Mr. Jackson's life?
Yes, we were very close.
Were you aware of the relationship between Ms. Jackson and Mr. Lee?
Yes, actually, I was with Brent when he found the text messages, the emails, and I even saw Brooke and Shan go into the same apartment together, and on the door, it said Shan Lee's name, so that's how we knew it was him.
Turning to July 1st, 2020, where were you on this afternoon?
I went with Brett to go obtain security footage from Big Bob's Burgers to help with his divorce from Brooke Jackson.
When Brett was inside doing what he was doing, where were you?
I waited in the car and yeah.
Was Brett aware that Mr. Lee and Ms. Jackson?
Objection, speculation. The witness has no knowledge of what Brett would know at this time.
Your Honor, permission to respond.
Yes, go ahead.
Your Honor, the witness and the defendant had made plans together, and it was established prior that Ms. Hill would know of Brett's intentions. They both were mutually involved in these plans, and nowhere in the plans did it mention that they were going to see Mr. Lee and Ms. Brooke. So it's a very, very not weird question to say that he would know that Brett didn't think that they were there. And also in our next questioning, we are going to give evidence to why Harper saw that Brett was shocked.
Your Honor,
Okay.
may I respond?
Yes, you may. Go
Thank
ahead.
you, Your Honor. This still does not change the fact that Harper cannot look into Brett's mind and know that their inner thoughts. Harper would have to speculate in order to answer this question.
Your Honor, just as Brooke was allowed to testify about Brett's mental space and his paranoia, it is very fair to say that Ms. Hill can explain the mutual plans between her and the defendant, Mr. Jackson, and also explain why it was very visible that he did not know that they were going to be there.
Permission to respond, Your Honor.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. Harper can testify to her own perception, but she cannot testify to what was in Brett's mind.
That is what she is about to do, Your Honor.
Yeah, that's fair. Let's let her answer.
Thank you, Your Honor. So, Ms. Hill, was Brett aware that Mr. Lee and Ms. Jackson would be outside of the restaurant?
No, he was completely unaware. Actually, when he walked out the restaurant, I saw that he looked very visibly shocked to see Brooke and Shan together.
Did you see what happened outside?
No, I could not exactly see because his body was blocking my view. However, I did see for a fact that the gun was dropped.
So you could not see what happened before the gun dropped, correct?
I cannot, no.
Objection, Your Honor. This was a leading question.
Your Honor, I apologize. I added the correct. It was a leading question. I can simply rephrase it.
Just rephrase.
Thank you. Could you see what happened before the gunshot?
No, I could not see what happened before the gunshot because Brett's body was blocking my view.
Was it clear what happened? Was it more clear what happened after Brett had dropped the gun?
Yes, after Brett dropped the gun, I believe the gunshot went off because I heard it.
To clarify, what was the order of the gunshot that you did hear and the dropping of the gun?
To my knowledge, the gun hit the ground and then the bullet went off.
Thank you, Your Honor. I now offer this witness to cross-examination.
Right.
Good afternoon. I'm going to be asking you a few questions today. You're friends with the defendant, Brett Jackson, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And through Brett is how you know Brooke Jackson, correct?
Correct.
Isn't it true that on May 19th, 2020, you saw Brooke walking hand in hand with someone?
I did, and I followed them back to an apartment and it said Shanley, so I assumed it was Shanley.
And you told Brett about what you saw, correct?
Correct.
And isn't it true that Brett became what you consider irate after hearing this?
Anybody would.
Your Honor, objection, speculation. It's previously been said that she's not allowed to speculate on what exactly was feeling, so I would prefer if we refrain from using Brett was and say, as the opposing counsel, like to say what you thought he was.
Your Honor, may I respond?
Go ahead.
It is stated in the affidavit that Harper noticed that Brett became irate, and in compliance with Rule 701, Harper is able to testify to things that are rationally based on her own perception.
Your Honor, she is in fact allowed to testify on what she perceived to happen, but just not the truth of the matter. And even if something is in the affidavit, it does not bar it from being hearsay or speculation just because a witness said it in testimony.
Your Honor, permission to respond.
Go ahead.
Once again, this would be rationally based on Harper's own perception, not based on what was going on inside of Brett's mind.
Permission to respond.
Okay.
Again, Your Honor, I think the opposing counsel is confused on the basis of this objection. I am simply asking to refrain from using language that suggests that these are facts when they are just assumptions based off of Brett's accent, just as we did with Brooke Jackson previously.
Your Honor, I can rephrase the question.
Why don't we do that?
Yes, Your Honor. Isn't it true that Brett became, in your perception, what you consider irate after hearing this?
At first, he was very angry, like any regular person would be. However, I was able to calm him down very easily.
But specifically, Brett became irate, correct?
Objection, Your Honor, asked and answered. She just asked the question and the witness did answer a yes or no answer, and then she answered it.
Permission to respond, Your Honor.
Okay.
The witness did not give a clear yes or no answer, so I'm just trying to clarify that, yes, Brett became irate.
Your Honor, the witness answered, and I quote, yes, he became irate, but then she talked about how he calmed down after. So she definitely said that he did become irate.
Your Honor, may I respond?
Yes.
The witness used the word angry, not irate, and I would like her to answer the question that I asked, which was, isn't it true that Brett became irate?
All right, let's let the witness respond.
Yes, Your Honor.
Considering angry and irate are synonyms, yes, I would say he did.
And Brett also vowed to make Brooke's life a living hell, is that correct?
Yes, by divorcing her.
Well, didn't Brett also say, I'm going to kill Shanley?
Your Honor, objection. The opposing counsel, objection hearsay. These are the words of the defendant. However, the opposing counsel is using this in prejudicial form, and this cannot, an hyperbole used by the defendant outside of court under oath cannot be used to the extent in which it seems to establish any intent of murder or anything. This was a colloquial within friends statement made not when he was under oath. So this can very well be assumed that it was not true.
Permission to respond, Your Honor?
Yes.
To respond to the hearsay objection, this would be a statement by party opponent, and so this would not be hearsay.
Yeah, I agree. Go ahead.
Thank you. I'll re-ask the question. Isn't it true that Brett said, I am going to kill Shanley?
Prior to deciding that he was going to divorce Brooke Jackson.
So that's a yes.
Yes.
Objection, Your Honor, prejudicial. She clarified, so I'm now objecting to that question. Whenever you, the opposing counsel is attempting to use these words made outside of court not under oath. It's not hearsay. However, this language that they are using definitely puts these thoughts into the jury's mind and sways the opinion which they have on Brett based off of just colloquial hyperboles used by my defendant.
Your Honor, may I respond?
Yeah, go ahead.
I was allowed to ask the question that opposing counsel is referring to. The question that was just objected to was simply a question to clarify a yes or no answer, since the witness did not give a clear yes or no answer.
Your Honor, the objection to hearsay was overruled. I now am objecting to prejudicial because the question was clarifying the previous question, meaning the question had the same meaning as the previous question. So I could say that this one is in fact prejudicial as well.
Permission to respond, Your Honor.
Okay.
This will not be prejudicial simply because I'm clarifying a statement. As per mock trial rules, a witness is required to give a clear yes or no answer and then an explanation. This witness did not give a clear yes or no answer, so I'm simply trying to clarify this yes or no answer, which is allowed.
Your Honor,
Go ahead.
the fact that the opposing counsel is using this quote taken from the defendant outside of court and using it as a fact, and they're trying to twist it to intent, this is extremely prejudicial, and this quote cannot be used as any evidence because it was made, again, outside of court, and any person could just exaggerate their feelings in the moment.
May I respond briefly, Your Honor?
Yes.
The jury can decide whether or not the statement is true. The statement is more probative than prejudicial. And once again, I was already allowed to ask the question referring to the quote that Brett said. The question that was objected to is simply a clarifying question, which I'm allowed to ask since the witness did not give a clear yes or no answer.
Okay, I agree. Let's go on.
May I re-ask the question, Your Honor?
Sure.
Thank you. So just to clarify, that's a yes, correct?
Could you ask the previous question again?
Sure. The previous question was, didn't Brett say, I'm going to kill Shanley?
At one point, yes.
Thank you. Now, on July 1st, 2020, Brett attempted to get surveillance footage of Brooke and Shan, correct?
Correct. That's why we were there.
And you saw Brett exit the building at about the same time that Brooke and Shan got to the door, is that right?
Coincidentally, yes.
And Brett turned to face them, which blocked your view, correct?
Yes, after looking visibly shocked to see them there.
So this prevented you from seeing anything, correct?
Yes.
And about half a second later, you heard a gunshot, correct?
Yes, after seeing the gun hit the ground.
Well, you saw the gun hit the ground, correct?
Yes.
And you can't be certain where the gun was when the shot went off, is that correct?
I cannot be certain, however, I do believe that the gun was on the ground before the shot went off.
And after the shot went off, Brett just ran off, is that correct?
No, he looked shocked and then ran.
But he did run off, correct?
Yes.
And then you also fled the scene and never returned, is that right?
No, I actually did return after to give my statement to the police.
But you returned to the police station, not to the scene of the crime, is that correct?
Yes, I left them my information to contact me back.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
Permission to redirect, Your Honor.
Yes, go ahead.
Ms. Hill, could you clarify the order of the gun and the gunshot?
To what I believe, the gun hit the ground and then the bullet went off.
Could you see what happened after Brett had dropped the gun?
Yes.
Thank you.
I saw the gun hit the ground.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
You ready for your next witness?
Your Honor, the defense would like to call Ms. Kennedy Gill to stand.
Okay. You ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
Hello, Ms. Gill. I'm Thompson Amzat, and I'll be asking you some questions today. Can you please tell the court a little about yourself?
My name is Kennedy Gill. I'm 50 years old, and I currently reside in Grande City, Louisiana.
And how are you involved in this case?
I was called in by the defense to analyze the firearm used in the homicide.
What drew you to the passion of gunsmithing?
I grew up in Boston, Massachusetts, and I was constantly surrounded by the history of the Revolutionary War, and I quickly became enamored with the historical value of firearms.
And after that, can you tell me when you were first exposed to gunsmithing?
When I turned 12, I became an apprentice at a gun shop.
And after that, how were you able to further your understanding on firearms?
When I turned 18, I joined the Marines and I became a 2111 arms technician.
Were you ever qualified to be a gunsmith after serving in the Marines?
After serving in the Marines, I went to Pennsylvania gunsmithing school and I graduated top of my class.
What did you do after receiving your degree?
I was informed about an opportunity in Grande City, Louisiana to apprentice under a nationally renowned gunsmith before eventually taking over his business.
How long has it been since you've taken over this business?
20 years.
And how do you run this business?
My business is nationally renowned, so people from all over the country send me in their guns to fix or modify.
Do you have a license to run this business?
Yes, I have my federal arms license.
And you have testified in court as an expert before, correct?
Over 35 times.
Objection, Your Honor, that's a leading question.
Your Honor, I am just establishing this witness credibility to.
I agree. Let's go ahead, continue.
Your Honor, at this time, I now offer Kennedy Gill as an expert in gunsmithing. I have established her education, expertise, and experience in this field.
All right. Any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
Okay. Go ahead.
Please explain how you were able to examine the gun in question.
I was able to examine the gun under supervision of a member of the Grande City Sheriff's Office, as long as my examination did not physically alter the gun in any way.
In your examination of the gun, what helped you shape your determination of the gun discharge?
I discovered two different things that would shape my determination.
What was the first of two things you noticed?
The first thing I discovered was a weak trigger, which could be caused by a loose sear screw.
Your Honor, permission to show what has previously been marked for identification as Exhibit G.
Yes, go ahead.
To reflect that my timekeeper is showing. Ms. Gill, do you recognize this evidence?
Yes, I do.
Can you identify it for the court?
This is a diagram depicting the inside of a gun and the mechanisms it contains.
Your Honor, at this time, I offer, file, and introduce Exhibit G into evidence.
Any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
Okay.
Ms. Gill, can you identify the parts of the diagram most relevant to the trigger mechanism?
The only relevant part of the gun in question is letter A, which depicts the sear screw.
Can you explain what your findings were concerning the sear screw?
I determined that the sear screw was adjusted improperly. In this case, it was too light.
And why would the sear screw being too light cause a problem?
The sear screw is the part of the trigger mechanism that holds back the hammer of the gun until the correct amount of pressure is applied to the trigger, at which point the gun discharges. So if the sear screw is improperly adjusted, the gun could accidentally discharge.
Thank you. Ms. Gill, what was the second finding that shaped your determination?
I also discovered dents and scratches on the exterior of the gun.
Your Honor, permission to show what has previously been marked as Exhibit E.
Okay.
Do you recognize this piece of evidence, Ms. Gill?
Yes, I do.
Can you identify it for the court?
This is the gun used by the defendant, Brett Jackson.
And when examining a firearm, what are steps taken to analyze the weapon?
First, I examine the exterior of the gun for any excessive wear or tear, and then I take the gun apart and I examine the interior mechanisms.
What is the most likely cause of an accidental firing situation?
Problems with the trigger mechanisms, in this case, the sear screw.
And was Brett aware that the gun had a light sear screw trigger weight?
Yes, he was.
Did you also analyze the bullet's trajectory?
Yes, I did.
Your Honor, permission to show what has previously been marked for identification as Exhibit F.
Okay.
Do you recognize this piece of evidence?
Yes, I do.
Can you identify it for the court?
This is a diagram depicting the bullet's trajectory.
And based on your expert opinion, where was the gun located when it went off?
Either on the ground or very near to the ground.
Does this corroborate with the defendant's testimony that the gun was charged upon contact with the ground?
Yes, it does.
Do you consider this firearm safe?
No, this is a very unsafe firearm.
What could have caused a discharge of the firearm?
An improperly adjusted sear screw would lead to the gun being very easily discharged.
Did you find any evidence to support the testimony that the gun was dropped?
Yes, I found scratches on the bottom of the gun.
Gil, what is your expert opinion on the events that occurred on July 1st, 2020?
Based on my expert opinion, I can conclude that the gun was dropped, and upon contact with the ground, based on the light weight of the sear screw, the gun could have potentially accidentally discharged.
No further questions, Your Honor. I now tender this witness onto cross-examination.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Ms. Gill. I'm going to be asking you a few questions today. So you were brought in today to review the firearm involved in the incident. Is that correct?
Yes, I was. The defense called me in to analyze it.
And when examining it, you found that the trigger was easily activated or light. Is that right?
Yes, I did find that the trigger was improperly adjusted and the sear screw was set too light.
And isn't it true that this adjustment was made after the gun was sold?
I cannot know when the sear
Objection,
screw
Your Honor.
was
Outside of the scope of my witness knowledge.
Permission to respond, Your Honor?
Yes, go ahead.
The witness states in her affidavit that the adjustment to the gun was made after it was sold, so it is well within the witness's scope of knowledge.
Do you have a response?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, well then go ahead.
I'll just ask the question again. You determined that this adjustment was made after the gun was sold, is that correct?
No, I cannot determine when the sear screw was adjusted because Brett states when I interviewed him that he bought it with a weak trigger, which means that the gun could have been potentially tampered with or altered before he purchased it.
I'd like to bring your attention to your Your Honor, push to approach the witness with their affidavit.
Go ahead.
Do you have your affidavit with you?
No, ma'am, I do not.
Okay, I'll read then. Let's see. It states here that you said on the third page of your affidavit, in the first paragraph, the third sentence, it appears that this adjustment occurred after the gun was sold and was completed by an untrained person who did not know how to adjust the sear screw of the firearm.
Objection, Your Honor. Relevance?
Permission to respond, Your Honor?
Yes.
I'm merely trying to, sorry, hear me better. I'm merely trying to explain how the witness does have the knowledge to testify when the adjustment was made.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor.
I am not sure when the gun was initially adjusted. Mr. Jackson bought it already modified, which means that the gun could have been adjusted previous to him buying it. He could have also further adjusted it. I am not sure of when that occurred or who adjusted it.
Okay, thank you. And this adjustment was made by an untrained person, correct?
It appears so. When I was examining it, that's what I concluded.
And you would say that Brett Jackson was, quote, not familiar with firearms. Is that correct?
In my interview with him, when I was asking questions, it seemed that he didn't know what he was talking about. So no, it does not seem that he was familiar.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Permission to redirect, Your Honor?
Okay, go ahead.
Mrs. Gill, since you stated that Mr. Jackson does not have any knowledge of firearms, could it be, how is there proof? Is it true that he doesn't have a, sorry, how could he know that the gun was adjusted?
Mr. Jackson, being unaware of firearms, he may not have understood what the adjustment of the gun meant.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
Your
Guys
Honor,
ready for your next one?
yes, Your Honor. The
Okay.
defense would like to call defendant Brett Jackson to the stand. Hello, Mr. Jackson. Can you introduce yourself for the court, please?
My name is Brett Jackson. I'm 34 years old and living in Grande City.
And what is your relationship to Miss Brooke Jackson?
She's my ex-spouse.
How did you two meet?
Met at Grande City Community College.
Can you describe your marriage with Miss Jackson?
We had a pretty loving. I enjoyed it. It was a good marriage until around September 2019.
What happened?
That whole year we decided that, we'd been married for 4 years. We're gonna try to have children, but we'd been experiencing problems or struggling having a kid. And September that year, we found out that I was unable to.
I'm so sorry. Is this the first time that you had learned of this condition?
Yeah, I was like, it was devastating news to me. Like me and her had always wanted to have kids, and we'd always had that dream before we even got married. I was shocked. I didn't know what to do.
And to your knowledge, did you perceive Brooke to be bothered by this?
Yeah, she was noticeably tense. Our marriage is never the same because of it. It's understandable. We both wanted kids. I felt like she hated me because of it. And I mean, I understood why, but like, if I found out about her, I would feel the same way. I'd still love her. She's my wife, but she didn't treat me the same way.
What happened next in your marriage?
I noticed that she began getting distanced away from me, and she became more attached to her phone and stuff. And I started noticing she was getting texts from this guy from her work named Shanley.
Did you see these messages specifically?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, permission to screen share what has previously been marked and entered into evidence as Exhibit A.
Permission granted, go ahead.
Mr. Jackson, do you recognize this document?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you identify them, please?
These are the messages between Brooke and Shanley.
Can you please read the first message from Shan?
Can't wait to see.
Objection, Your Honor. This is hearsay.
Permission to respond, Your Honor?
Yes, go ahead, respond.
This document has already been entered as evidence, and it has been shown that Brett Jackson is familiar with them. I am also simply going to ask the witness to testify to their present sense impression after reading the messages, not to the truth of them.
Okay.
Permission to respond, Your Honor.
All right.
Still, the fact that they are reading the messages means that they're testifying to the content, because evidence is not just the paper, it's what's being said in court.
I'm just asking the witness to read what has already been entered into evidence for the court.
Okay, well, yeah, let's go ahead. Continue.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Can't wait to see you tonight.
And the response from Brooke?
I can't wait to see you either.
How did you interpret these messages? Could you unmute, please, Mr. Jackson?
Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
I'm sorry. It was pretty obvious once I saw him that she was seeing someone else. I didn't really understand what they were doing, but she hadn't told me about it, so she was going behind my back meeting someone else.
So what did you do after you read these messages?
I confronted her about it and eventually found out that she had been having an affair with Shanley.
So to your knowledge, was this the end of the affair?
It was, I was, I found out, and then I was, there's admission to guilt, and we started going to counseling. But after a few months, I found other evidence of her infidelity that showed that the affair had never ended.
What else did you find?
One day I was looking for a picture for our anniversary, and I stumbled upon emails of her, or it was a secret email. It wasn't, there's only two people living in her household. It wasn't mine. So it could only be hers. And she was messaging an S. Lee, and it had my name in it. So I knew it came from her.
Your Honor, permission for our timekeeper to share what has previously been marked and entered as evidence as Exhibit B.
Go ahead.
Do you recognize this document, Mr. Jackson?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you read the line beginning with "can't wait"?
Objection, Your Honor. This evidence also contains hearsay. It is made by Sean Lee, who is in court today and cannot.
Permission to respond, Your Honor?
Yes, go ahead and respond.
Again, just as we have established with the messages, Brett Jackson is not going to testify to the truth of them solely to his present sense impression and how they affected him and his actions that he took after reading it.
Permission to respond, Your Honor.
Okay.
That isn't a hearsay exception, so therefore this would still count under hearsay.
Hearsay objections has already been overruled. This exhibit has been entered as evidence.
I think that's right. So let's go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Jackson, can you read that line, please?
The subject line or the first line?
Beginning with "I can't wait."
I can't wait.
Mr. Jackson, you're muted again. I'm sorry.
I can't wait so we can be together and not have to worry about Brett.
How did reading this make you feel?
Reading this email, it made me understand that she had been lying to me once again. And I felt, not insecure, but I felt a genuine fear for not only my marriage, but my life, as we're not going to have to worry about Brett. Like, what does that mean? It's like they're trying to get rid of me. And I was unaware to the situation, so it could happen at any given time. It was just really shocking to me. I didn't know what to do.
So after you had read these messages in this email, what did you do?
Well, this was the second time of me. I confronted Brooke, and I found out again that she was still having an affair. After that, my friend ended up contacting me, Harper, and notified me that he'd seen her out with Shan, and told me what he looked like, saw them at Shan's apartment.
And what did you do next?
Well, that was the third instance of infidelity, so I contacted a divorce attorney and asked him what to do.
After you saw your divorce attorney, what did you do?
Well, from that, I gathered that the best course of action would be to find as much evidence of infidelity as possible, and in order to win anything in the divorce. I wanted to keep my house and possessions and stuff like that. And well, I knew they went to Big Bob's Burgers a lot. I didn't like going there. It was all the way across town. So one day on our anniversary, I decided to go because I figured that would be the last place, So I went out to Big Bob's Burgers to try to get the security cam footage.
Did you succeed in getting this footage?
No, I went to Big Bob's Burgers, asked him for it after I bought a burger, and he said no, he wouldn't like to give that to me.
What did you do next?
I paid for my food and I just walked out.
Was this the first time that you had seen them that day?
Yeah, as soon as I walked out the restaurant, just a few feet away from me, it was like startling. It was Brooke and Brooke and Shan just right next to me walking towards me.
And you had no inclination before you went to Big Bob's Burgers that Ms. Jackson and the victim were going to be there?
No, I had no idea. Like, it was July 1st is their anniversary. Like, why would they go to Big Bob's Burgers on our anniversary? That doesn't make any sense to me.
Would you have gone to the restaurant if you had known that they would be there?
No, seeing them, that was my first time seeing them together. It literally, like, it's so heartbreaking to see your wife with another man right in front of you.
After you saw each other, what happened?
I saw Shan reach for something in his coat pocket, what I presumed to be a gun. So I grabbed my concealed carry weapon, and before I could fully draw my weapon, he wrestled it out of my hand. It came out and fell.
After the gun fell, what did you do?
Well, I heard the click of the gun hitting the ground, and then I heard a shot.
And then what happened?
Well, then Shan gripped his chest, saw that he was shot, and then I ran. I was scared. It was an unsafe environment. I didn't know what to do.
Did you come back?
Yes, after I ran away after my adrenaline settled down. I came back and I saw the Brooke and Officer Cameron Cole. I assume she was already talking to the police.
Did you shoot Shan Lee?
No, I did not shoot Stanley. I would never.
Did you pull the trigger?
I didn't even have time to draw my weapon.
No further questions, Your Honor. I now tender this witness for cross-examination.
Okay, thank you.
Cross, Your Honor.
Go ahead.
Good morning. I'm gonna ask you a few questions. In January 2020, you became suspicious of your spouse, Brooke, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And you became suspicious solely because a coworker was texting them, right?
No.
At this point in January of 2020.
No. I told you I thought I made it fairly aware. She was getting distant after I said I couldn't have children. She was acting like I was crazy. She wouldn't talk to me, stuff like that.
And you didn't even see any text messages between Brooke and Shan until a few weeks later from becoming suspicious, right?
Sure.
Okay. And 2 days after seeing those messages, so we're to January 23rd, you went to a gun show, didn't you?
Yeah, I was so excited to go to that gun show. Like, it just, like, I talked to my therapist about it. Like, it really got my mind off of things. My brother had told me about it. Like, or Harper had told me about it. I call him brother. We've been friends for so long. And he really said, hey, bro, this will really get your mind off things. I went and bought a gun. I never had a gun before. It was a really exciting experience for me. Got my mind off the affair and everything.
If I showed you the invoice, would you recognize it from the gun show?
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, let the record reflect that this is an unmarked copy of Exhibit D that I'm showing to opposing counsel and yourself. May I proceed with having my witness identify it?
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, go ahead.
Brett, do you have this in front of you? It's the invoice, it's Exhibit D.
No, I'm sure I could find it though.
It's no problem at all. Just to clarify, the date right here, I don't know if you can see it. It says January 23rd, 2020, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And the bill is to Brett Jackson. Oh, it's right here. Brett Jackson.
Yeah, that's me.
And that's you, yes. Correct?
Yes.
So when purchasing this gun, you learned that it had a loose trigger, right?
Yeah.
And it on this bill, it says that the item is listed as a modified 9mm pistol, tan and black, correct?
Yes.
And you said it yourself that you're unfamiliar with guns, correct?
I mean, I was about as familiar as the gun show seller wanted me to be. He said it had a weak trigger. That's why it was modified. Increases my aim, you know.
And so you still decided to buy a modified pistol as an untrained person?
I mean, I went and got my concealed carry. I became well versed with my gun after I bought it. I gained enough experience to hold it. No, I'm not experienced with the mechanisms of a gun, really, just as any other gun holder.
So you just said that you're very experienced with your gun specifically?
No, I'm experienced enough to carry it. I don't know the inner mechanisms, everything like that.
And if you're experienced enough to carry it, you still didn't put the safety on?
It's a concealed carry weapon. What are you talking about?
You didn't put the safety on your gun, did you?
Well, when you draw a weapon, you want to take the safety off anyway. Okay? So in self-defense, you don't have to take extra time to defend yourself. And this didn't really matter.
Yes. Moving on, you looked on Brooke's phone on multiple occasions, correct?
Multiple times. Or it'd be first messages. Her messages are on her phone already. They're open because she doesn't have a passcode. So, I mean, if you want to count that and open her phone. So, like, I mean, you could round it to 2 times if you wanted to.
And on these occasions, you saw a new email from Brooke, correct?
Oh, yes.
And after this email was received, you learned that Brooke was seen going into Sean's apartment, correct?
Wait, can you restate the question, please?
After that email was received, you learned that Brooke was seen going into Sean's apartment, correct?
Yes, a few weeks later.
And after this, you wanted to, quote unquote, make Brooke hurt like you were hurting at the time, correct?
She made me lose my life partner. You know, we've been married for 5 years, so she was gonna lose me. We're gonna get divorced.
So if she lost her life partner, you're saying that you wanted her to lose her other life partner?
No, I lost her because she cheated on me. Now I'm going to
Understood.
I'm gonna leave. We're gonna get divorced. She doesn't know we're getting divorced. I'm gonna disappear with the house.
Understood. In doing this, you found the restaurant that was referenced frequently by Brooke, correct?
Yes, ma'am. Big Boss Burger.
Yes. And that's a place that you knew Brooke and Sean went to often, right?
Yeah, I saw it. They went. Yeah.
But in your direct, you said that there was no way you could have known that they would be there. Isn't that right?
You know, the thing is, right? If I go to work every day, that's something that happens every day. They don't go to Big Bob's Burgers daily, to my knowledge. So if I pick a random day, specifically my anniversary, I don't think my own wife would spend her anniversary with me with another man at Big Bob's Burgers.
Got it.
Yes.
Understood. But you're familiar that they did go to that place often.
That's why I went, to get the security footage.
Understood. And you were turned away from that footage, weren't you?
I was.
So after you couldn't get the footage to make Brooke hurt like you were hurting at the time, you left angry, didn't you?
It was really like a flurry of emotions. Like I had been trying. I gave her everything she wanted. 3 separate times that I catch her cheating, and I find right now that I'm still trapped in this marriage because this one guy won't give me security footage. I was on edge, I guess you could say, yeah.
And in that flurry of emotions, you walked out and saw Sean, right?
Yeah, and my wife.
And then you decided to pull out your gun, correct?
I saw him reaching for something, what I thought was a gun. Keep in mind, he was a few feet away from me. A few feet is about 3 or 4 feet. Someone pulling a gun at you right there, approaching you, I think you'd be terrified as well.
But he didn't pull out the gun. You did. Isn't that right?
And before I could, what did he do? Knock it out of my hand.
But he didn't have a gun, did he?
Don't think it matters. He was approaching me and he attacked me. I have my right to stand my ground as a Louisiana citizen.
So between the two of you, you're the only one that had the gun in the interaction, correct?
I didn't have it at the end of the interaction. He knocked it out of my hand.
Your Honor, can you please instruct the witness to give a yes or no and then a brief explanation? Can I ask the question one more time?
Let's try it again.
In the interaction between you and Sean, you were the only one that had the gun, correct?
Yes.
Thank you. No further questions.
Welcome.
Anything further?
Yes, Your Honor. May I redirect?
Go ahead, please.
Mr. Jackson, do you have much knowledge of firearms?
No, ma'am.
Would you have purchased your gun if you had known that it was so unstable that it could accidentally fire?
No, I thought it was just the weak triggers better for AME.
So was Shanley's death an accident?
Absolutely. If I could take it back, I absolutely.
Objection, Your Honor, that's outside of the scope of the cross.
Your Honor, I'm just stating whether or not, I'm just getting the defendant to state whether or not they intentionally pulled the trigger.
And
Which
Your
we've
Honor,
already
permission to
addressed on direct.
respond.
I'm just clarifying for the juries and on cross.
Permission to respond.
Yes,
Sorry,
response.
I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, no.
What's in redirect has to be contained within cross, and I did not ask any questions about if he intentionally pulled the trigger or if he pulled the trigger at all.
Counsel, anything further?
No, Your Honor, I'll move on.
Okay, let's move on.
Would you say that you or Shanley was considered Brooke's lifelong partner?
Well, I thought it was me.
So did she lose you in your divorce?
Yeah, that's like we were married. She lost me. I hope so.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Thank you.
At this time,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Your Honor. It's okay. Your Honor, if the defense rests, may we have our 5 minutes to confer with co-counsel before closing arguments?
Yes, the defense rests. We would also like our short recess, please.
Okay, let's do that.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Your Honor, would you like us to reconvene at 2:08 or 2:09?
Yeah, let's 2:09.
The prosecution is ready.
The defense is ready as well.
Okay, go ahead and proceed, guys.
Your Honor, before I begin, I would like to reserve all remaining time for my rebuttal. Your Honor and members of the jury, on behalf of myself, Lily Coates, and my co-counsel Brindley Pethe and Isabel Pringle, we would like to thank you for being here today and attentively listening as we presented our case. As you are well aware, we the plaintiff's side have the burden of proof to fulfill today. We must prove to you without a shadow of a doubt that Brett Jackson shot and killed Sean Lee. We must prove to you that Brett had the intent to commit murder and that they did commit that murder, and we did just that. Between both prosecution and defense witnesses, our burden of proof was more than fulfilled. First, you heard from the prosecution's witnesses. You heard that Brooke Jackson told you that even before she began to confide in someone, Brett would say threatening things to her, look through her phone, and accuse her of cheating constantly. She also told you that the reason she got close with Sean is because she wanted to divorce Brett and didn't know how. Brooke also told you that when going towards Bob's Burgers, it looks like Brett was waiting for them. She told you that Brett looked like he pulled out his gun unprompted, and then Sean tried to disarm Brett, but Brett shot him before that was possible. Then you heard from Dr. Frances Edwards. Dr. Edwards, an expert psychiatrist, told you that Brett was more than competent to stand trial. She also told you that when conducting an interview with Brett, he became visibly angry and frustrated when Brooke and Sean were mentioned. She also told you that Brett showed no remorse when discussing the murder. Lastly, you heard from Officer Cameron Colt. He told you that Brett seemed unusually calm for someone accused of murder. He also showed you that the trajectory of the bullet was consistent with the gun being shot from the waistline or side holster. He also told you that Bob, the owner of Big Bob's Burgers, saw Brett leave angry and in a hurry, and a few moments later, the gunshot went off. The Cameron Cole also told you that the scratches on the gun can easily be explained by the fact that Brett dropped the gun and fled the scene after shooting Sean. Harper Hill confirmed that the gun was Brett Jackson's, and no other witnesses could support self-defense. Next, you heard from the defense's witnesses. First, you heard from Harper Hill. Harper told you that her view was blocked and she couldn't clearly see in her own words anything. She also testified to hearing Brett say word for word, "I'm going to kill Sean Lee." Not only this, but you heard that Brett vowed to make Brooke's life a living hell and that he was irate after Brooke was seen going into Sean's apartment. Lastly, after the murder, Harper told you that she fled the scene and never went back. Next, you heard from Kennedy Gill. Kennedy Gill seemed unsure and tended to give contradictory statements. The scratches in the dent are consistent with being dropped, is what Kennedy Gill said, but the prosecution knows the firearm was dropped. It was dropped after the shot and when Brett fled the scene. Lastly, you heard from Brett Jackson. Brett became suspicious of Brooke's affair in January. Just 2 days after finding out about Brooke's affair, Brett, in his own words, was very excited to go to a gun show and purchase a gun. In his own words, he also went to the gun show to take his mind off the affair. Brett knew that the gun had been modified and had a weak trigger. He also bought the gun and he knew that it would increase his aim, even though he lacked experience with firearms. Brett said it himself that he didn't like going to Bob's Burgers, but yet he did anyway, on the day of the incident, knowing that Brooke and Sean went there often. When he was denied footage from Big Bob's Burgers, he was left on quote-unquote on edge and in a flurry of emotions. Then he encountered Brooke and Sean and drew his gun. Sean didn't have a gun, yet Brett claims to act in self-defense. Brett didn't care about this, however, stating, in quotes, "I don't think it matters. I was able to stand my ground." Brett admitted that the environment of the incident was unsafe, the direct result of his own actions. Even Brett admitted to turning off the safety when his gun was drawn. After all this testimony, it is clear that the prosecution fulfilled our burden of proof. We showed you that Brett Jackson had the intentions to shoot and kill Sean Lee, their wife's lover. To determine if Brett Jackson is at fault and committed second-degree murder of Sean Lee, it falls on you, the jury's shoulders. You must determine from all the testimony today that beyond a reasonable doubt, Brett killed Sean. When you deliberate, remember that even children take responsibility for their own actions, but not Brett. When given the opportunity to defend themselves, they ran. When put in court to explain, they created a narrative of self-defense that has no background or evidence. Please help my co-counsel and myself determine that Brett Jackson is guilty of second-degree murder and for the crime committed against Sean Lee. I now would like to save
Your Honor, permission to start closing for defense?
Yes, please proceed.
May it please the court. Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, my name is Thomason Amzat, and together with my colleagues Lucy Yos and Haley Gleason, we ask you today to look at the facts presented in the case, or all of which reveal Brett Jackson's innocence. A wise man proportions his belief to the evidence. To make a truly just and fair verdict, you must consider the lack of evidence offered by the prosecution. The burden was on the prosecution to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Brett Jackson fired his gun with intent to kill or harm Shan Lee. They have failed in doing this. The only fact the opposing counsel has proven is that Brett legally bought and was carrying the concealed gun from which the bullet that shot Shan Lee was fired on July 1st, 2020. They have not proven that Brett purposefully shot Shan Lee with the intent to kill or inflict great bodily harm. In fact, they were unable to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Brett shot Shan Lee at all. Brett loved his ex-spouse, Brooke Jackson, and was willing to work things out with her, even when she was unfaithful. He agreed to marriage counseling. He participated in marriage counseling. And the entire time Brett was committed to working on their marital issues, Brooke was developing a relationship with Shan Lee. Understandably, Brett decided to finally get a divorce. In fact, it was on the advice of the divorce attorney that Brett was at Big Bob's Burger on July 1st, 2020. He absolutely did not go to Big Bob's with the intention of seeing Brooke and Shan. Brett was only there to obtain video footage for his divorce case since he knew that the restaurant was one frequently visited by Brooke and Shan. Brett drew his lawfully owned and carried gun only after he saw Shan reach inside of his coat for what he thought was a gun because he had every reason to feel threatened and in fear for his life. Ladies and gentlemen, Brett testified to the truth of what happened that afternoon. He had barely finished drawing his gun from his holster when Shan Lee slapped it to the ground, at which point the gun fell to the sidewalk and fired the shot that killed Shan Lee. Brett neither pointed the gun at Shan Lee or pulled the trigger. It was not murder, it was tragic accident. The opposing counsel has presented testimony from witnesses who could not prove that Brett's story wasn't true. The lead homicide investigator, Officer Cameron Cole, admitted that there was clear evidence at the crime scene that supported Brett's claim. Upon her examination of the gun, she found scratches and a dent, which is consistent to the gun being slapped out of Mr. Jackson's hand and making contact with the ground. They also interviewed Dr. Francis Edwards, a psychologist who testifies that Brett is not insane, but does not speak about the emotional distress this man is currently in after discovering that his wife is in love with another man, preparing to go through a divorce with his former love of his life, not to mention being accused of second-degree murder. Dr. Francis Edwards also stated herself that there is doubt upon her examination and misapplication of her entire testimony, and her entire testimony could be at the risk of error, which instills reasonable doubt in the prosecution's case. Neither of these witnesses could find conclusive evidence that Brett Jackson intentionally shot Shan Lee. The only witness that can, without doubt, testify that what occurred on July 1st is Harper Hill, who stated that the gun hit the ground before it fired. Brooke Jackson's credibility has been proven to be questionable and unreliable. Brooke cannot testify without reasonable doubt that her observation, as she admitted, to be reliable with closed eyes. Members of the jury, look at the facts, or perhaps the absence of facts in this case, and apply a little bit of reasoning. Can you, beyond a reasonable doubt, conclude that Brett Jackson had the intent to shoot or cause great bodily harm to Mr. Lee? Absolutely not. We ask you to find Brett Jackson not guilty. Thank you for your time and attention today.
Thank you.
Rebuttal, Your Honor.
Yes, go ahead.
A wise man, Aristotle, once said, "We are responsible for our voluntary actions and character." With this, remember that Brett is responsible for carrying, pulling out, and shooting the gun he carried to a place he knew Brooke and Shan may be. Opposing counsel may claim that Brett was at the wrong place at the wrong time, but on the contrary, he was at a place that he knew Brooke and Shan went normally, with a gun. Opposing counsel mentioned that a wise man proportions his belief to the evidence, and that is exactly what we did. With that, please determine that Brett Jackson is guilty of murder in the second degree. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, what's protocol, guys?
We would like feedback if you would like.
Yes, and I know that the scoring judges and yourself have to turn in some scoring forms, and then if you have time, again, what opposing counsel said, you can just do that back. But we also want to say thank you, and it was really nice going against you, opposing counsel. That was really fun. Thank you.
Yeah, we had a good time with you two. Thank you.
Y'all did an incredible job. I'm blown away. So it gives me hope for the future to be to have lots of talented colleagues like y'all if y'all do decide to go into the legal field or whatever you choose to do. Just wow, excellent job. Really.
Thank you.
I'm beyond impressed. I'm gonna finish my scorecard now.
What do we do after we finish the scorecard?
Hello?
So I think y'all submit the scorecards. We don't have any access to that. And then I think y'all can provide feedback to the attorneys and witnesses if you want.
Okay, ladies go first.
Oh, you've been so quiet. Go ahead, Skeet.
I think you guys did a great job. I think that, let me do the video thing first. You did a great job. It was, I think, a more difficult case on the prosecution. And in the comments, I made sure to put what I thought was good, what I thought you could work on. But, you know, for the most part, everyone did a great job. Some of the witnesses did a really good job. I thought that the guy who played Brett did a great job. And I thought that the girl who played the cop did a great job. Both of them did a good job of leading the questions in the direction that they wanted the answers to go as compared to what the question was asked. And their corresponding lawyers did a good job of asking direct questions and not asking leading questions and just letting the witness railroad over the other side. So good job.
I agree. I said a similar thing in my comments, is just the command of the direct examination and the cross, but also just every witness's ability to, you know the facts and also say them, but also just the attorney's command of the witness. It was excellent. It was excellent. The objections were good. Y'all handled them well. I was very impressed. Do y'all have any questions for us?
No, but we just want to thank you for giving up your Saturday to come do this. And we really appreciate it because it's a really good opportunity to meet other people from across the state and meet people from the profession and get some feedback.
Yes, for sure. Y'all keep on doing this. This is awesome. I actually didn't have mock trial at my high school, but I did speech and debate. It was a little different, but this was great to be involved in and see all you younger kid. I still can't believe y'all are in high school, but it was just really impressive, and y'all should be really proud of yourselves.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Of course.
Yeah, great job, guys.
All right. Good luck, everyone.